everyone, to the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting for May 8th. Our chair and vice chair are out, so the kids get to play. Hopefully lead us through our agenda. Roll call, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Uli. I'll take roll call. Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Dordan.
Here.
Commissioner Lindvik.
Here.
Commissioner McClure.
Here.
Commissioner Uli.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Barely have a quorum. Open up public comment with the room full of people. Please take your turn. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and consider approval of the minutes.
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair. If we could go to staff for virtual public comment.
Oh,
written
yeah,
public
we've got
comment.
that virtual thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Uli. At this time, we don't have any virtual participants, but we did receive written correspondence from Richard Clausen, Pamela Burr, George Midwin, and Assad and Kathy Moore that was distributed to the commission prior to the hearing. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. We acknowledge receiving that written correspondence and close public comment. On to consideration of approval of minutes.
I move to accept the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there comments to the minutes? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Uli. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Dordan.
Yes.
Commissioner Butler.
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik.
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
Commissioner McClure.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. On to consideration of adoption of the consent calendar.
Move to accept the consent calendar.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
Thank you. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will go through the consent calendar. Item A was 102 Natoma Ave, which received project design approval and final approval with the condition that the steel posts and the railings be solid steel instead of tube steel, and the appropriate findings. And that was all for consent.
Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Uli. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Butler.
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik.
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
Commissioner McClure.
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. On to announcements, continuances, withdrawals, and future agenda items and appeals. Are there any announcements?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff has a couple of brief announcements. The first one is that both items 1 and item 3 on today's agenda have been postponed to May 2nd, 2024 at the applicant's request. So,
1 and 3?
yes, May 22nd. So that will be our next hearing, and then we can go to Ms. Hernandez for the remainder of announcements.
What's that, a revised date?
May 22nd
Go ahead.
for both items 1 and 3.
Just because we received public comment on the Milpas Street Dairy, I did want to let you know I had been in contact with the owner since 2021 on the cow that used to sit on top fell about replacement options. And at that time, we talked with the city attorneys and gave them the options of coming to HLC to ask to not replace it or replace it in another location. Insurance company's not going to let them put it back up there because the high school kids go up there and decorate it, and that's a liability to the owner. So because they haven't done anything since 2021, when we had those conversations, we had it go to enforcement so they can follow it more closely. So now there'll be an enforcement case put on them until they come and talk to you. And on the C. Melinda, 820 C. Melinda, which we all did the site visit on last year with the missing, I took 2 inspectors with me this morning, and that cupola is there. It's just covered with a silver tarp right now because it's leaking, and they're doing until they can repair it. They're in for their building permit, which should be received any time when they can start moving on it. I think it's just the silver tarp might have disappeared in the sky or something because it was there. So that's the updates on your public comment. That's it
Thank
for
you.
me.
It was a cloaking device.
I don't think it was intentional.
Thank you. Any announcements by commissioners? All right, on to subcommittee reports.
The only report that I can offer on the State Street Advisory Committee is that the small group meetings have been discontinued. They will not be held in the future, and the staff is aiming now to have that discussion in a full committee, with the full committee in attendance, sometime June. I don't know that there's been a date selected yet, but they felt there were Brown Act conflicts in the small groups meeting, so that's been stopped. I don't really know what's happening with State Street Advisory Committee or State Street or the State Street project as such.
All right.
Sorry about that, guys.
Not your fault.
No, it's not.
Anything to slow down the process?
True.
Any other announcements, issues by commissioners? All right. As item number 1 has been continued, the next item is at 2 o'clock, and so we need to wait about 10 minutes or so. So we will recess. So dash out and get coffee or whatever, and we'll see you back at 15 minutes to the hour. The Historic Landmarks Commission, item number 1 was continued as announced earlier, so that brings us to item number 2, presentation on K-Rail Public Art Project. The Office of Arts and Culture will present information regarding a new upcoming art project for the public crash barriers, also known as K-Rails, at the intersection of State Street and Haley. Are there any staff announcements about it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one brief announcement. This is just a presentation on a public art project. As you know, art is protected by the First Amendment, so it is not subject to design review. And then the K-rails themselves are outside the HLC's purview as well. So this is just a presentation for your benefit as the Historic Landmarks Commission, but you will not be taking an appealable action today. And you're welcome to make comments, but you don't necessarily need to. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the applicant.
Well, that concludes our item. On to item number 4. No.
Good afternoon, everyone. How's the volume?
Good.
All right. So we're happy to be here today, and for those of you who I've not yet met, my name is Sarah York Rubin, and I serve as Executive Director of the Office of Arts and Culture, Arts Commission, which is almost 40-year partnership between the city and the county to do their best to combine resources for art services and programs. And I'm here today with our curator, Tom Pazderka, and the artist whose work we'll talk about shortly, Andrew Thill. So this project, we're calling it the K-Rail Public Art Project, even though technically these aren't K-Rails, but I think it helps people get something in mind. Was inspired by different programs that we've seen in other kind of benchmark municipalities. So there have been, I think similar beautification struggles in all of the areas, but one way that artists have been kind of brought into the conversation for making those communities also that uniqueness and beauty / idiosyncrasy a little bit more apparent was to bring in some art into the crash barriers. And so we were largely driven, it's a combination of beautification and art and design, so it's not necessarily an art first project, and it's temporary, but we're hopeful that it can be great. And go back one. So the treatment will be for the intersection of the State and Haley streets. And there's 8, I think you can see, and I went back to the title slide, but there's 8 different contiguous rails, and it's about 40 feet in length, and then I think almost 3 feet, a little over 2.5 in height. We issued a call for art, and we asked artists to submit a treatment to address visually, given that the area is so busy, so it's different than a museum or a white wall, something that would track well. And we actually pulled a lot of the criteria from the flag committee, the flag guidelines downtown, because those have been refined over a number of years also to address environmental elements or what stands out nicely. And we got about 60 submissions from local artists, and the submissions were outstanding. We were pretty thrilled to kind of see the different varieties of work or approaches. Commissioner Drury sat on the selection panel. We also had representatives from the Chamber, downtown Santa Barbara Beautiful, the Museum of Art, Museum of Contemporary Art, Arts Advisory Committee, and then support from staff. So it was kind of a group of immediate stakeholders and also some brick and mortar businesses right in that corridor, because they'll have to cohabitate with this, and we want them to be excited. So the criteria were largely about the relevance to the area, kind of the visual dynamism, also how it fits, culturally and contextually. And the proposal that unanimously, in a series of, this is probably the strongest in terms of the calls for art that we've issued, the pool of submissions. There was still a unanimous top choice even in the pre-evaluation as well as in the panel deliberation. And that was Andrew Thill, an artist who has a studio downtown Santa Barbara, whose concept is iconic Santa Barbara. And Andrew, do you want to talk quickly?
First of all, it's an honor to be here today, so thank you for taking the time to review this. My approach in this project was to really celebrate all the things that we love about Santa Barbara living here, and encapsulate that in iconography that could be simple, seen from a distance, and people could engage with, but also those people who maybe are visiting or not familiar with Santa Barbara could look forward to in exploring and entering State Street. And so, there's varying colors. Each K-rail, while there are 8, is divided into 4 geometric sections. So as you can see, we've got things that represent the ocean, Santa Barbara wine country, State Street, and local community shopping, palm trees, and then of course our wonderful architecture. And so each of that is encapsulated in a panel. So that was my goal. Yeah.
Hmm.
And we've been working closely with the city traffic engineer as well whenever we do artwork that's in of either pedestrian or vehicular traffic area. That's always important from a safety perspective. And we're, happy after being able to discuss with him, we'll be able to wrap the full traffic barrier, so the full K-rail. Originally, we were going to partition off most of the backside for directional arrows, but that's addressed through other signage. So it should be pretty visually compelling from both sides. And we decided to use vinyl, like a 3M outdoor grade, just for kind of UV support, but also just given the heavy usage. Volume of people, and anything that can happen will happen. So, as milkshakes, keys, they are crash barriers, right? And I think that's the thing, is that at the end of the day, they're infrastructure. But we are excited, and we plan to print individual sheets for each of the 8 and wrap them in their entirety. And then we'll also, Tom and Kevin and Andrew, there's a whole team, have been working on, there's kind of holes for the forklift in the center, so we'll plug those so it'll be a kind of a flat, fitted surface. And then also shading or grading the kind of interconnected, go back to that first slide again. So kind of that grid that connects, because we won't be able to cover that with vinyl, but we want it to disappear to the extent possible. We'll be shading like a neutral gray or navy, as well as kind of that bottom that folds in, that's more concave, just to make it as nice as it can be. And our plan is to do a temporary installation summer. And, as, future conversation that you'll have that is, as you talk about State Street and what happens, this project is temporary. And with that, I would, thank you for your time and open it up to questions.
Thank you. I'll open up public comment period. Anybody in the audience or online who would like to comment?
Thank you, Commissioner Uli. At this time, I don't have any speaker slips, and we don't have any online attendees at this time. We also did not receive any written correspondence, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Close public hearing and turn to the commission for questions. Commissioner Lindbeck.
These are vinyl wraps?
Yep.
Commissioner Doherty.
A couple of questions. Do you have an anticipated lifespan? Do you know anything more about these than we do?
The vinyl itself holds up well outside for about a year. So if we were to keep this up before it starts to degrade to, and we're, higher aesthetic, I'm sure that's,
But going into this project, have you been told anything about how long they're liable to be there?
I know as much as you do.
Okay, that's fine.
But they're, they're infrastructure, so should they go away, they're like cones, we'll use them elsewhere. They can, anytime we need to close off an area.
Commissioner Butler.
So, was there any consideration or possibility for incorporating digital imagery or messaging imagery? I know these are just bulk things. Is any other way than just covering the surface? I like the artwork. Don't want to be critical of the work. It looks great and that looks fun, but I'm just thinking of making it, is there any option to make it more dynamic?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah,
power, perhaps.
good question. So we stay away, and one of the criteria was that people were not allowed to use words because there's such a signage adjacent element to where they're placed, and we really didn't want to do anything that could be misconstrued as promotional or signage. So it is icons and symbols, but the files are digital. So we also allowed people to submit photographs of tactile work, but because they're digital and digitized, we've been able to work with Andrew on refining the renderings to work well on the planes so that they can pop a little bit more than if it was a static application. So I don't know if that kind of gets there.
Well, what I was wondering, and this is probably out of the scope of the project, but rather than static imagery, was there an option to work with these K-rails to manipulate them to where there would be dynamic imagery that moves or backlit or progresses, changes?
I think they're, given budget and time, there's different ways to accomplish that are probably not outside the scope, but outside of the resources and just labor capacity that we have. But we agree that, when possible, it's great to have something that's responsive or kinetic.
And did I see a timeline on your?
Yeah, you did before I moved away from it. So our plan is to install, our hope is Memorial Day weekend. So that wouldn't be soon. But, the vision is summer season, and again, giving the unknown duration of the K-rail in that location. And then, have it for the summer to see how it goes. And, I think if people love it, which I'm sure they will because the artwork is so fantastic, there's, the possibility to extend.
Expand
Yeah.
okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner Leclerc.
How do you attach them? Does this canvas straddle the whole thing? Does it drape over the top?
It does, and it's sticky. It's almost like
Okay,
a
sticky.
bumper sticker, but more industrial. So it'll be very, affixed, but also we're ordering the prints from Graphic Ink, which is a vinyl and outdoor signage company vendor that we've used a lot for outdoor art over the years. And I also like that they're local and independent and have a vested interest in it staying looking good. But they'll actually do the application themselves just because they're so experts really at making
good.
sure that it's exactly
And secondly,
smooth.
did you ever consider spanning, unit to unit to get rid of that jagged edge that runs vertically, like maybe one giant one, or?
Thank you. It was a conversation that we had, and we were looking both because there's the forklift holes, and then there's kind of the, I don't know, what would Tom, locking grid
Yeah.
Coupler.
The spine.
but the kind of breaking it up, while not ideal, because we're not able to fill in the gaps between kind of the locking mechanism, the chance for them to bubble or be punctured is greater. It's kind of an unknown. And then also, if one's damaged, the nice thing about 8 discrete pieces is we could rewrap in order one.
Makes sense.
But yeah, it's a great question, and smoother is better, so that would be ideal.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner,
Couple of comments. First of all, thanks for coming in. It's nice to see this. First comment, it's really hard to do something that stands up in an outdoor dynamic environment like that, and I think you did a really nice job. I think it'll look really good. Having said that, we also know that there's an intense discussions going on about the configuration of State Street going forward. And I just want to be very clear, I don't like K-rails, so I don't want anything happens here today to be taken as we are on board with K-rails as a part of the future of State Street. We know they're there now, and you're going to make them look better. Thank you. But I just wanted to be clear about that.
so we don't want a little rubber stamp with K-rails to stamp on all the
We don't want
projects
somebody
that
to come by
along.
a year from now and say, well, the HLC loves them.
Yeah.
We love this one for this period of time because he's good. But we don't like K-rails.
Yeah. Not that you have anything to do with the
Right.
deployment
Yeah,
of K-rails.
no, but I think
No,
But-
it's
This is a record.
This is
absolutely,
in
it's
the
on
record.
record and
And
point
we appreciate, like I
taken.
say, you coming by to show us
Bad,
to us.
K-rails
Yeah.
are bad.
And we'll always, for our purposes, because we are government, they're infrastructure. And so I think to do something to any kind of portable infrastructure that we'll need again for purposes of safety, the wear is less.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah.
you did it. It's a nice job.
Thanks.
So I suppose once the art component expires, we might see these K-rails somewhere else in the transportation system as, remnants of a day gone by.
It's like when the piano's on state, you see one at the airport, or you're like, wait.
Since there is no motion on this item, anybody have any other general ideas, comments, issues? Good luck with that.
Good luck and thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Looks great.
commissioners. We appreciate it.
It's good to see you, Tom. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's,
So, Commissioners, the next item is, since item number 3 has been continued, item number 4 is scheduled to start at 2:25. And so we've got another break. We shall recess until 2:20. and move on to item 4. Project is not a historic site or within a historic district. Project consists of a new 39-unit residential development comprised of 3 stories above ground level podium parking. The existing commercial building will remain. A lot line adjustment application being processed separately will result in a total lot area of 0.69 acres. The project includes an approximately 1,300 square foot residence storage room and 32 parking spaces. Access to the parking areas will be provided from an existing driveway off of Delavina Street. This item is to review the archaeological report for said project and request acceptance of the Phase 1 archaeological resources report prepared by Mr. Stone. Mr. Glasshow reviewed it and agrees with its conclusions and recommendations. Are there any comments from staff?
No comments from staff.
Thank you. And we see that the report writer is in front of us. Please tell us who you are and give us your summary conclusions of your report.
Thank you, Commissioner Uli. David Stone, Stone Archaeological Consulting. I'll give you a very thumbnail sketch of what I looked at in this report. Prehistorically, there are 13 previous archaeological studies in the area, so it's been well reviewed. The closest archaeological sites, prehistoric, are 1,500 feet to the north and 2,500 feet to the southwest. So this is not in particularly an archaeologically sensitive area based on previous investigations. The structure, the project site was occupied first in 1907 residents and then was converted to a medical facility by Dr. Michael Butera, and the original structures were demolished in 1954. So what you see out there today are not those original structures. However, since it was constructed in 1907, that predated solid waste and sewer municipal services, so there is the potential for isolated trash pits to be somewhere on the archaeological, on the project site. Dr. Butera is not a prominent individual in Santa Barbara history, so the fact that there are trash pits potentially in this area dating from that time does not make them potentially significant because they're not associated with an individual important in history, and there's no particular event that occurred there. The archaeological survey that was completed there by my staff identified disturbed soils and imported sand. There was enough soil exposure to verify that there were no archaeological sites on site. So as a result, the standard condition was applied that in the unexpected event that materials are found, that the environmental analyst of the city be contacted and appropriate significance evaluation and potentially mitigation be developed.
Thank you. Does that conclude your summary?
That certainly does.
Thank you. Open up public comment and ask anyone in the room who has a comment or online to do so now.
Thank you, Commissioner Uli. I'm not seeing anyone in the audience, but we do have a virtual participant, so if you would like to speak, you can raise your hand on Zoom at this time. I'm not seeing any hands raised, and we didn't receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Commissioner Uli.
Thank you. We'll close public hearing. Move on to questions by commissioners. Commissioner Lindvik.
No thoughts on the privy, on the site?
Commissioner Lenvik, not this time.
Okay, just wondering.
And that's potential privies, not.
You're right. It wasn't
Okay, just want to
defined-
make sure.
Wasn't defined as positive that was a privy,
Yeah. A potential privy.
potential privy.
P
Yes,
squared.
They're known as PP in the archaeological business.
Very good. Yeah. A PPE. Yeah. Any general comments?
I'll move for acceptance of the report as submitted.
Thank you. There's a second. Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Uli. I'll take roll call. Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes,
Commissioner Butler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Always enjoyable seeing you here.
Yeah. And we appreciate the fact that you're sporting an architectural tie.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about my brevity?
Yeah.
It's amazing how close it blends in with the vest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
was thinking-
It's like Wright was into something in Arizona.
Well, that concludes our very busy calendar. Have a good evening, all. Thank you. And good night to our one viewer.
No,